pair of alleles affect the segregation of another pair of alleles? For example, does the gene that determines whether a seed is round or wrinkled in shape have anything to do with the gene for seed color? Must a round seed also be yellow? Does one gene affect the other? That's the question. Independent assortment. To answer these questions, Mendel performed an experiment to follow two different genes as they passed from one generation to the next. Mendel's experiment is known as a two-factor cross. The two-factor cross, F1. First, Mendel crossed true breeding plants that produced only round yellow peas. The genotype was RRYY, dominant round, dominant yellow, with plants that produced wrinkled green peas, genotype RRYY. So recessive round, making it wrinkled, recessive wrinkled, and two recessive yellow or green genes. All of the F1 offspring produced round yellow peas. This shows that the alleles for yellow and round peas are dominant over the alleles for green and wrinkled peas. A Punnett square for this cross shown below shows that the genotype of each of these plants is heterogeneous R and heterogeneous Y, right? When you look, it's all the same here, but each one is a heterogeneous RY, and R is dominant, yellow is dominant, and round is dominant. This cross does not indicate whether genes assort or segregate independently. However, it provides the hybrid plants needed for the cross. Okay, so when he did this, he was able to make these plants that had mixed genes, right, heterogeneous genes, to make the next cross. The cross of F1 plants to produce the F2 generation. So now we're going to cross another set. Mendel knew that the F1 plants had genotypes of RRYY. In other words, the F1 plants were all heterozygous. Oh, I said heterogeneous before. Heterozygous for both the seed shape and the seed color genes. How would the alleles segregate when the F1 plants were crossed to each other to produce an F2 generation? Remember that each plant in the F1 generation was formed by the fusion of a gamete carrying the dominant RY alleles with another gamete carrying the recessive RY alleles. Did this mean that the two dominant alleles would always stay together, or would they segregate independently so that any combination of alleles was possible? Okay. In Mendel's experiment, the F2 plants produced 556 seeds. Mendel compared the variation in seeds. He observed that 315 seeds were round and yellow. Another 32 were wrinkled and green, the two parental phenotypes. However, 209 of the seeds had combinations of phenotypes, and therefore combinations of alleles, not found in either parent. This clearly meant that the alleles for seed shape segregated independently of those alleles for seed color, a principle known as independent assortment. Put another way, genes that segregate independently, such as the genes for seed shape and seed color in pea plants, do not influence each other's inheritance. Mendel's experiment results were very close to the 9 to 3 to 3 to 1 ratio that the Punnett square shown below predicts. Mendel had discovered the principle of independent assortment. This principle states that genes for different traits can segregate independently during the formation of gametes. Independent assortment helps account for the many genetic variations observed in plants, animals, and other organisms. So in other words, they started out with round yellow, right? Originally it was a dominant round both and dominant yellow both. And they mixed it with with wrinkled green. But now they're getting some round green and some wrinkled yellow. As you can see, the variation is different. So round does not have to go with yellow all the time. Round can also go with green. And yellow does not always have to go with green. It can also, yellow doesn't always have to go with round. It can also go with wrinkled. So here are some, as a problem-solving activity. I will let you work through that on your own.